pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show that all board members are present except Eric Strandberg. And then we'll move on to our board showcase tonight with the LETRS training and Super Kids. And take it away. Did she? Oh, there she is.
Well, thanks for having us. I have been so pumped for this. Just to be able to come and share a little bit. Really the goal here today is just to highlight and show, to teach you on how we are teaching our kids to read at the primary school. Let me just check that. And before even getting started, I just want to thank Mrs. Juleson and our Tiger Cubs for coming this evening and their families. When I called them to say, hey, I have this opportunity, what do you think? They were all just very gracious and came, and it means the world to me, especially with the weather today and just kind of coming out. So thank you, you guys. Our first graders, are going to actually help us to teach you on some of the things that we do to learn how to read in two different areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to present and share a little bit of content, and then they're going to come forward and help us teach. And then we're going to present a little bit of content, and then they're going to help us come back and learn how to teach in a different way. Okay? So thank you very, very much for being here. It means a lot. And so you might have heard that a whole bunch of us are taking LETRS training. At the primary school, we have, I would say 98% of our teachers are either in cohort 1 or cohort 2 of LETRS training. And when you hear that, that is essentially a training that helps support the science of reading. So when we were looking for different resources to help with our phonics and our phonemic awareness, we wanted to adopt a resource that helped and was highly supported through the science of reading that LETRS taught us. And Super Kids, my little friends there that are taking a nap, that resource is very much aligned to the science of reading. So that was one of the reasons why we chose Super Kids. Plus there's some other really cool things about it that I'll share as well. Okay, so when we think about guaranteed and viable instruction, that means what we want to make sure that all kids are getting each and every day and in all classrooms. And so when we think about all of the variables that happen into a day, different types of class parties, early dismissals, fire drills, just all of those things that might not be planned, where you're like, I'm not sure that I can get in everything in my 120-minute block, because we dedicate 120 minutes for English language arts and Spanish language arts, because our goal is to try to develop decoders before they leave the primary school, meaning that they can read. And so when those things maybe in a day might go sideways, we had a collaborative conversation and just said, what are the two things that have the highest impact to help students to be able to read? And it is phonemic awareness and orthographic mapping. So that's what my friends here are going to help teach us here today, are those two things about what do we mean by phonemic awareness and orthographic mapping. So we'll get a chance to learn through that here together. So those are the two daily things. No matter what happens, all kids get that in every single classroom at the primary school. So before we dive into phonemic awareness, and Sarah and I, a great appreciation for her, because her and I collaborated in kind of putting this together. The biggest thing to kind of think about for phonological awareness is sometimes you hear phonological awareness and phonemic awareness interchangeable, but they're actually two things that are very, very different. Phonological awareness, if you think about it, is like an umbrella with a whole bunch of different skills that are underneath the umbrella that vary in complexity and are a continuum of where kids start, and then how they kind of build and scaffold upon each other. Phonemic awareness is one of those skills that is underneath that umbrella of phonological awareness. And Sarah can test me on how I do on this, so let me know, Sarah. But with phonemic awareness, so it's one of the skills underneath that umbrella. What it does is it's essentially an isolation of the letter sound, and it's all done auditory. So there is no working with letters or looking at letters. It's all by hearing. And that's a really important piece, because if you start to introduce letters to it, we have moved beyond the phonemic awareness definition. So everything is auditory by how letters sound. And so when you think about all of the different skills that are underneath that umbrella.
Coming in.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Sarah. So when you think about all of the other skills that are underneath that umbrella, this is a chart that shows what some of those other skills are. Like you might hear when children are really young to have them start rhyming. That's one of the first things that kids can do to help with phonological awareness. There's other things in there as well, but tonight, that part of that daily guaranteed and viable instruction that kids get is this last part, that phonemic awareness, where we're blending and segmenting phonemes. When you hear the word phonemes, that's just a fancy word for letter sounds. The fact that N makes the letter sound N. And we've even been really deliberate when we're teaching those different letter sounds. You won't be able to see this necessarily today, but we have sound wall cards where we talk with the kids about what does your mouth do? Like where they'll take little mirrors and actually look, where is my tongue placed? Is it voiced, unvoiced? There's really that science of reading piece that comes along with that.
So why are we using phonemic awareness? Because that's one of our most basic skills our students need to learn to become good readers. And we need to develop an understanding of that so that they realize that words are made up of multiple letters and sounds, and not just try to memorize a word, because we have so many words in our language that we can't memorize them. We have to learn how to break them apart and decode them.
All right, should we see what it looks like? Well, it doesn't look like it. It's what does it sound like? Should we see it in action?
Yeah.
All right, so my first grade friends, come on up. Okay, come on up over here, please. Okay, so you guys can grab a chair. I'm gonna have you just kind of sit in one of those. There you go. Go for it. Okay. And so what Mrs. Juleson is gonna model is this is Haggerty, the resource that we use to teach phonemic awareness. When we're looking at resources, we want them to be very direct and explicit so that all kids are getting that same experience. Okay, are you guys ready?
Ready?
Okay.
Remember, we won't do the whole thing, right? We'll do a few words in each section, okay? All right, so our first part is rhyming. And today I'm going to tell you 3 words. 2 of them are going to be rhyming words, okay? Remember, rhyming words are the same at the end. Yes, they're the same at the end. The end of our word is the same. Okay, so you get to tell me the 2 words that rhyme after I say them. Okay, here they come. Sweet, tweet, and snow.
Sweet, tweet.
Yes, good work. Okay, listen carefully. Here's 3 more. Friend, spy, and spend.
Spy, and spend.
Spy, spend. Are they the same at the end?
No.
No, what are they the same? At the beginning, right? Okay, listen again. Friend, spy, spend.
Spend, friend.
Yeah, spend and end. Okay, here's our last one. Style, bring, sting.
Bring, sting.
Bring, sting. Okay, those are our 3. You ready for the next part? Now we're going to do the beginning sound in our words, okay? So this time I'm going to say the word, you say it back to me, and then just tell me that beginning sound, okay? All right, your first words. Stone, sleep. What are the words?
Stone, sleep.
And what does it begin with? Good. Okay, say crush, crowd.
Crush, crowd.
And what's the beginning sound?
Cook.
Last one, blue and break.
Blue, break.
And what does it begin with? Okay. Now this time we are going to blend sounds together. So remember, Mrs. Jolson will chop and you guys get to blend it together. So you got your choppers ready? I'll do the chopping, you get to do the blending, okay? So here's our first word. Breathe.
Breathe.
Awesome. How about stamp?
Stamp.
Good. Last one. Flash.
Flash.
Yes, great, thank you. Okay, where do you hear this sound now? Now you have to listen to where you hear the phoneme. Is it going to be at the beginning of a word, the middle of a word, or the end of a word? Okay, and this time our sound is going to be sk. Can you say that? Sk. So you're gonna have to listen for sk at the beginning, the middle, or the end, okay? Say skunk.
Skunk.
Beginning, middle, or end?
Beginning.
Beginning. Say task.
Task.
Where's that?
Middle. And
Let's check it.
task.
Where is it?
Ending.
The end, okay. Say skillet.
Skillet.
Where's that?
Beginning.
Skillet, it's at the beginning. All right, let's switch. And when we do Haggerty every day, there are about 8 to 10 different skills that we practice. And we're doing 3 words in each one, but usually there's, well, this one has 8 at a time sometimes, or 5. So, you ready for another one?
Mhm.
Okay, now you guys are the choppers. I get to say the word and you guys get to chop it into its sounds, okay? The segmenting. Say strand.
Strand.
Okay, let's do it. Oh, awesome. And that was even hard at the end with the N and the D. All right, say breeze.
Breeze.
Okay, let's go.
Breeze.
Awesome. Last one. Say gravy.
Gravy. Gravy.
Yes. Love it, guys. Great job. What's adding a beginning sound now? All right, so I'm going to have a word part and we're going to put another part at the beginning of our word to make a new word. Okay. Say link.
Link.
Now add a
Link.
good. Say leaner.
Leaner.
Add a k. And
Cleaner.
we get cleaner. Okay, say leap.
Leap.
Add a
Sleep.
perfect. Okay, let's take it away now. We're going to take away, let me see if it's the beginning. It is the beginning. We're going to take away the beginning sound of our word. Say blend.
Blend.
Take away the b.
Blend.
Blend is left. Say flake.
Flake.
Take away the f.
Lake.
Perfect. Here's a long one. Are you ready? Say president.
President.
Take away the p.
President.
President. Awesome. Okay, let's see. Substitution. We get to take something away and put something back. Got your hands ready? Ooh, what is it today? You know what we're changing today, you guys?
What?
The ending of our word. Have you guys changed the ending? Ooh, say nap.
Nap.
Take away the app and put an ale.
Nail.
Nail. Yeah. Say duck.
Duck.
Take away the uck and put a ump.
Dump.
Dump. Yeah. Say coil.
Coil.
Take away the oil and put a ook.
Cook.
Cook. Awesome. Kiss your brains. You guys just did it all today. Way to go. Do you want to go back? You guys can go back. Okay? Thank you for helping.
Nice job, first grade friends. So as Sarah mentioned, there are usually many more words underneath each of the different skills that they practice, but we just wanted to kind of show an abbreviated lesson. What's the most important thing is that the students, when doing Haggerty lessons, get exposure to all of the different skills, because you'll notice like the substituting that they were doing at the end was harder than some of the beginner skills. That's more important than getting through all the words underneath, like rhyming, before you move on to the next piece. It's more important that they get the exposure to all the different skills. Nice job, you guys. So proud of you. Okay, so that's part one, guaranteed and viable. Haggerty is every day. And I just have to say about Haggerty, what I love about it is when I think about systems implementation, we saw that last year where I would do like random walkthroughs to a classroom and I would see students consistently, without me knowing that I'm there, or teachers using those different strategies, like even on their own, like you'll see a lot of hand type of pieces, kids using those on their own even during independent work. So that tells me that systematically we are rocking and grooving with Haggerty, which is really exciting. Okay, Sarah, what's orthographic mapping? Part two.
The second skill we're going to model and teach you guys is orthographic mapping. It's a process that we teach explicitly. It's not a skill per se. And there are many little pieces that go into that. The phonemic awareness that you just saw with Haggerty is the very first basic building piece for our orthographic mapping.
And so when we think about knowing that it's a process, not necessarily a resource, the students, this is where you see the phonemic awareness, the letter sounds being combined with the phonics, which is the actual letters. And it kind of builds off of it. So they're hearing those specific parts of the words, using N again, that N means mm. So we're taking that, what we heard, like what Sarah just saw, or demonstrated, and then we start with the beginning parts of phonics. So that's where you introduce, if you're saying the letter N, if you're practicing you're showing them this is an N. The is what the letter N sound makes. And then it goes on to a little bit more scaffolded piece here with phonics, that your groups of letters make specific sounds. So like blending things like the two letters CH. How many sounds does CH make? Yeah, you got it, buddy, you won. The two letters CH make the ch sound. So that is a little bit more advanced phonics. And so what you see here in front of you, which we're gonna model here in a moment, is how we put all of those different pieces together. The words, which is the phonics, and the sounds, the phonemic awareness, and blend it together, and then they work together. And what that does is it helps to teach kids that decoding piece, not just memorizing, and it takes it from the working memory to their permanent memory, their long-term memory. What this process does is it kind of like cements it like glue, if you would. Okay, and so we're gonna invite you guys to do some orthographic mapping with us. And our first grade friends, I'm gonna invite you guys back on up. And I'm gonna invite them to kind of come and do orthographic mapping with you up by the ark. Okay, so come on up, my friends. There you go, buddy. So you guys are gonna help me teach them how we do this. You guys get to help be the teachers here, okay?
We need one person over here for these two.
We might, honey, can you go right here and make some extra work for us? Yeah. All right.
I think you can do.
And then maybe what could we do? Honey, can you come over here?
What happens?
You wanna sit here? We're gonna pair up together. No.
We're gonna have to really,
So we're gonna switch.
serious here.
All right. All right, my first grade friends, now, they're the students. So you can kind of show them the first time, but then they're gonna have to do it too with you, okay?
All right, first graders, can you put your little chips up on top in your circle so they're ready to go?
So the first time we'll kind of go through slower because we were gonna use the dot cam to kind of model it, but that just won't work for right now. So Sarah, can you guide us through on what it looks like?
So you guys are ready. You have your chips there first, right? Everybody got it? Okay, you guys are helping me teach now, right? What's step one? What are you guys gonna say after I give you a word? You're gonna say the word back to me, right? Okay. So, actually I wanna use this. Here's your first word. Say fresh.
Fresh.
Okay, let's tap it.
And
Shh. How many sounds is that?
four.
Okay, hold down your chips, please. Do the sounds on your chips. Okay, and then what do? We touch those chips again, right, when they're in the boxes. Let's do the sounds again. And shh. Perfect, now grab your marker. Okay, what letters make those sounds? You can write them on the lines down below.
Here, hold on, I was gonna use my sleeve for that, there you go.
Some of them, a lot of them, except this one. Have erasers. Nice handwriting too.
So what they're doing is because the sh sound makes, it's two If you want, you can come up and take a look. You're welcome to come up and take a look if you want.
It's so cute.
Okay, guys,
Really
how
good
did you spell
penmanship,
fresh?
too.
Let's spell it. Can you tell me the letters? F-R-E-S-H. And what's the special thing with the S and the H?
It makes a special sound.
It does. So did you put the S and the H in one box or two boxes, Aubrey? One box. Did you do that too? Yes, Eliza. Okay. Erase that word, please, and put your chips back.
We forgot to slide it.
We did forget to slide it. You're right, Eliza. Thank you. I'll try to remember the next one, okay? All right, let's do another word. Let's do, yep, go ahead and put all your chips back. Put your chips back. Let's do the word brush. What's the word? Brush. Let's tap it. Sh. How many sounds? 4. Okay, pull your chips. Sh. Touch them one more time. Do you have an extra one up there? Did you leave one up at the top? Yes. Okay, let's see the sounds. Sh. And then down below, you get to write again. Go ahead and spell brush now. All right, let's say the sounds in just 1 second. Remember, if you are all done, before we say it, you can check it too, right? So let's do our check right now. Put your finger by the first sound and say, what's that first sound? Do all those letters match? Okay, last part, then we have to slide it, right? Like Eliza told us. Let's go to the beginning and read it. Brush. There you go. Now you can erase it. Sometimes it does that, doesn't it? Should we do one more, you guys?
One more, the last one.
This is your last one. Let's do crash. Say the word first, please. Crash. All right, go ahead and blow your chips. And write it, or touch it, say it. Now write it. And when we repeat the touching and the moving and the sounds, that's trying to help that connection. So. I think we're ready. Let's touch at the beginning. And then slide it. There you go.
Can I ask a question? Okay, so here's a question to the students. Is crash starts with the k sound, right? And how did they know that crash starts with a C and not another letter that might start with a k sound? How does that work into this whole situation?
Do you want me to answer?
I don't know.
How did
The
you guys
student,
know?
how did you know?
How do you know which one? Do you know? How did you know, Aubrey? When I asked you.
I don't know.
Well, we did have a couple of them be different.
Yeah.
And when I just asked them to think about this vowel sound or that beginning sound again, they're like, oh. And from my experience, they start to just realize, they start to remember those patterns. because we do learn to read through patterning, and so it's another one of the patterns that they remember.
So part of the science of reading, yes, and part of the science of reading is teaching them the different rules of English spelling even, like if you have a silent E at the end of the word, how that changes the vowel sound even, like if it's a long or short. So there's those different patterns, and the English language is actually one of the most challenging to learn because there's so many. And then they just kind of, the repetition, and kind of like Sarah said, when you just constantly practice it daily, we know that that's what they call spiral review. Spiral review is where you keep coming back to something over and over and over. It just helps that. Yeah. Nice job, first grade.
Super good.
I feel like I learned your mind today.
For sure.
And
Teaching us.
In my 5 years, this is the first I've never seen our students behind the board table teaching our board members, which that's pretty incredible.
they did a great job.
Yeah.
First grade friends, we're gonna talk about our favorite super kids in a little bit. It's up to you if you wanna share or not, but if you want, you can grab your favorite super kid to talk about. If you wanna do that, it's up to you if you want to, but you can grab your favorite super kid, because Mrs. Markshausen is gonna talk a little bit about it. And then if you wanna share your favorite one, you can.
Will we tell us their names at some point, their names?
All right, you guys got that? All right, you guys can, if you want, you guys can just have a seat right here too. All right, so super kids. As I kind of shared, we wanted to adopt something that really aligned to the science of reading. Super Kids has been, I have to share this real story with you. I don't know if I've shared it with all of our parents even. But true story, a kindergarten classroom this year, family took a trip around the winter break to Disney World. And the little girl in the class did not want to leave because she was scared she was gonna miss her Super Kids, like the Super Kids lesson. And so the dad was telling her, oh, when we go to Disney, there's gonna be all these characters, right? So the little girl went to Disney World, and you know what she was really bummed about? When her dad said that there were gonna be all these characters, there were no Super Kid characters. So she thought that she was gonna be able to meet Super Kid characters. It was so precious. But that's what we really love about it, because not only does it do the phonics piece with aligning to the science of reading, but there's very, very much a social and emotional and learning piece that's attached to it. So as the super kids start in kindergarten, they actually grow developmentally into first grade when our students are in first grade, and then developmentally into second grade. So there's very much that different SEL piece with it that fosters that social emotional development too. Okay, so friends, if you want to, could you maybe start by, can you just share your name and who your favorite super kid is? Okay, oh, you wanna go first? Okay, what's your name?
Owen.
Okay, might have to talk a little. Oh, and who's your favorite super kid?
Oswald.
Oswald? Why Oswald?
I like to write, he likes to write, and I like to write too.
Oswald likes to write and he likes to write too. Okay. All right. Can you share your
My name is Aubrey, and I picked Lily because I like to play with stuffed animals too.
Okay.
My name is Eliza, and I picked Edabetta because she likes to read and I like to read.
Perfect, thank you. What's your name, buddy? What's your favorite character? This is Aiden. And he came here even on his birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Who's your favorite super character, honey? Who is this guy? Should we look at the bottom? Who's that? Aiden likes Elf. Is it because you both start with an A? I love it.
Aiden, what does he like? I remember what he likes.
What does Elf like?
Do you want to tell him? Tell me to tell him.
What does he like, Mrs. Jolson?
He likes adventures. Elf likes adventures, and Aiden said he liked to do adventures too.
Thank you, friends. You guys did such a nice job. How about high fives? Then you can go back and sit with your moms and dads. Nice job. I'm
Thank
so
you for
proud of
teaching
you
us
guys.
today.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Friends, come here one second. I gotta tell you something first, okay? Well, you have some music for days, but you have to look in the mail for something. This is your house, okay? Can you watch the mail for me? And then maybe there'll be something in the mail for you, so make sure you tell your moms and dads. Okay, high five. Have a great day. All right, and that is phonemic awareness and orthographic mapping.
Okay, so can we ask some questions?
Yes.
Okay, so this is super exciting, right? And it's so awesome that we're really back to the basics, right? Focusing on reading, literacy. How is this different than maybe what we have been using for curriculum and instruction in our primary level?
It really goes back to the letters trading. Like, we are shifting from, to simplify it, we're teaching kids how to decode versus like memorize. Like, instead of looking at pictures to try to guess a word, what are some other tools in the toolbox on how to know what the letter sounds are? Those pieces, even like where I mentioned before, when they look in mirrors even, to know what their mouths are doing. We talk about, is your voice on, is your voice off? We're using also like the academic language, like we talk about what a digraph is with kids. Sarah, do you wanna share some more? Like, I was gonna talk about the 3Q part processing to
Well, another huge piece is helping students realize there are sounds in words. It's not, dog is not D. Like when in kindergarten, when I was teaching kindergarten, they would say, I got dog, because they thought the D represented all of that word. So realizing when we're doing Haggerty that there are multiple pieces to a word. And then when we bring in our phonics and we tap and we map, they actually can see those chunks, and that's going to help them be able, when they get to biology and they read about anatomy and physiology, to find those chunks. And this kind of change is moving through 3rd and 5th too, and looking at roots and prefixes and what are the meaning of those, and
open syllables and closed syllables, and just all of this different approach on how we're teaching them to read. And then like for that phonemic awareness piece, the letter sound. So what Sarah and our first graders modeled was Haggerty. Once there's even different levels of phonemic awareness depending upon which grade the student is in. Kindergarten and first grade, it's pretty basic. Haggerty is a good fit for that. Once they get into 2nd grade, it's more advanced phonemic awareness. So we actually use a different resource called Kilpatrick. Same idea, but it fits kind of where the kids are developmentally, right? Because it kind of is that progression that scaffolds.
And pre-K also has it. So it's even where Sarah was talking about the umbrella and the different levels of phonological leading up to phonemic awareness. They're at that other bottom, the lower level of phonemic awareness in pre-K. So creating a system that complements each other.
And then I have a question for parents, if any of you are willing to share. I mean, have you seen growth in your children in the reading from, like, what is that like? What have you noticed? What have you seen? Yeah.
I was taught to read as you just memorize it. I can't tell you why a word is like this, but this is just how it goes. And trying to teach my daughter, she's my oldest child, so it's my first time having a child go through school and having them learn how to read as well. Trying to teach her how to read, we didn't do a good enough job to get her prepared for kindergarten. So in kindergarten, when she started, they're like, oh, she's way behind where she should be. Because we just couldn't tell her, explain it good enough. It's like, well, that's just it. You just sound it out and do it. But I couldn't tell her the how or the why really, to where it would stick in her mind. So she could see some words, but her grasping of new words that I didn't already explain to her, she couldn't do that. She couldn't figure that out on her own. And so her reading scores were lower than average, so they got her into this. And then now she's right in line with everyone else, and I wouldn't have ever been able to do that on my own, especially having her be my first, just not experienced enough on my end. So we've noticed a huge difference.
I think the big thing that I see is she'll just take a book and sit down and start reading it, and I can see her doing a lot of the same hand motions and different things while she's picking apart the words
Sounding it out.
without me even prompting. That's really cool.
Confidence.
Just being able to look at the word itself and just be able to pick the little bits of the sounds of each letter and how it formulates together, and then put it all together in one word.
That's awesome, thank you. And, when I met with primary school teachers and intermediate school teachers with Soup with the Soup, I saw them beaming with pride because they're seeing more growth in their students than I think they have historically in their career. And I mean, they've always worked hard. But now it's like the results, doing the right things with that work ethic and passion and love for teaching our children. And it's just been incredible. And what's really exciting is we're still in our infancy stages of really implementation of this. And we've made some huge strides. So this is, I think, the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, this is actually the first year where all of our classrooms are getting Super Kids. Last year we piloted, we wanted to kind of go slow to go fast, right? Like when you adopt a resource, you usually adopt it for a while. So adopting the right one is really important. So last year we piloted 2 different resources, Benchmark and Super Kids. And we chose those because both of them aligned to the science of reading of what you saw. And in the end chose Super Kids. We had like kind of a rubric and criteria, but so when you think about systems-wide implementation, this is the first year where all classrooms are getting Super Kids. And those that had Benchmark last year, it's okay because it was still aligned to the science of reading. We chose 2 really good resources to pilot, and we really like the Super Kid piece. And I think you could see, they just love the Super Kids, and I love the SEL piece that's attached to it, because that's a very big part of what we do.
I think the kids can relate to the Super Kids more, and that makes it interesting for them.
Awesome.
And in first grade, they were introduced to a new teacher, right, that you didn't have in kindergarten for those that had Super Kids. Second grade? It's first grade. Okay, cliffhanger. Well, thank you, everybody,
Thank
so
you
very
so
much.
Thank you guys so
Strong.
much. Thank you.
All right, I'll have clean up and.
Yep, ours are all over.
Ours are all where they're supposed to be.
That is
Thank you.
Same thing.
I don't think I can get all that all over. Okay, thank you.
Or have them come in.
They told him that you could get a little bit later this time.
Yes. Girls so fast.
Thank you so much, T.
Almost 6. She says, sit down.
I don't want to.
You know, it's how he gets in there and wins and keeps us.
I wonder if this is.
You meet your mom and dad and grandma and auntie. Yeah, I mean, I get that. Safe travels.
So you don't.
That was awesome.
Oh, thanks for having us, you guys. I know it probably got a little longer, but.
Well, I know that we cramped your style when we
Oh,
get in
no,
here
you're
to set
totally
up,
good.
but.
If you would have been early, then.
Eric, I love it. Hey, if that's the worst thing that happens in all of our days, we're doing very
That
well.
was so fun.
They're so sweet, like, we have the best job in the world, we get to be by them all the time. All right,
Thank you.
we'll, reorganize out there and get everything.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Just leave it. I'll move it.
Person. You guys would have been seeing round 2 of Sarah later when she got home. Thank you, Melissa.
I'm here to help.
Good idea.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Okay, we will move on. There are no citizens' comments, and we'll move on to board member committee reports, starting with Melissa.
We just got done with the public engagement committee today, so that was our first meeting for that, and I think we've made some good progress with lots to go.
I was also at public engagement, and I did last week through the chamber. I went to Just Desserts at the high school, which was super fun. A lot of fun.
When they do it, just a short, what do they do?
It's like, it's the same concept of like speed dating. So you have an adult at each table, and then they did it with the seniors, a group of seniors. And we had 1 or 2 seniors at our table for 3 to 4 minutes, and then we would ask them questions, or they would ask us questions. Jessica kind of emceed it and set up the scenario for each 3 minutes. And, you know, they had to do the business handshake.
Interviews, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't like necessarily interview them for jobs,
No.
but we just asked different questions just to try to get them to communicate with adults and be comfortable with that. And we have nothing to worry about with the seniors that came through there.
Oh, that's really good to
Yeah.
hear.
It was really fun.
Good. Okay, I had public engagement as well, and agenda planning, and then a C general meeting, which had Senator Rorick from the Pine City area spoke, and really the superintendents really spoke to him more than he spoke. And then the head of the TRA, which was a super interesting organization about the health and welfare of the fund, and they're implementing, if the legislature passes it this year, 30 years and 60-year-old retirement benefit will move some people out. You can't blend it, you have to be 60 and you have to have at least 30 years.
So
But
it's not like a rule.
It's not the rule of 90, but it's a help to try to, was concern in the room about young teachers that are leaving the profession because they look at having to be 66 and what that retirement will look like at 66, and we're like, we're gonna go to the private sector. So there was lots of conversation about that, probably some of the robust conversation that we've had about TR, lots of different statistics. It was very interesting. And then I did want to mention the C Day at the Capitol is Tuesday, March 7th, which is our next board meeting. And they need to know if any of us are coming. And so would you please look at your calendars, and if you, it's all day, and I'll get more details, but it's all day. And I need your address before we can move forward as a group. So I would like each of you to email me whether yes or no, you're gonna participate, and then if yes, then I need your address that I can forward on. I don't know, Ben, if that date works for you.
You know, it does, so I think I need to get there a couple, 2 or 3 times, so I will try and make it that day so we can coordinate, you know, when we will go.
And I'll get more information from Kim. If none of you can go, then.
What time did you say?
Well, it's been historically all day, but it depends on the particular day and who's available and who she has set up. And so I can't speak to that specifically. Kim is a new executive secretary, so it's not quite as thorough as it has been planned. But typically, we've gone all day, like there at 8 or 9 and leave 2 o'clock-ish, somewhere in there.
And I don't recall if I've seen anything, does MSBA have days there as well?
There was just something in their,
We do have a
weekly
day at the
update.
Capitol.
Yeah. They had a
March
capital
20th.
meeting.
When do you need to know it?
Well, as soon as possible, because it's 2 weeks from tonight, or from today, so.
Yeah, and I would say that if you really want to go, but that date doesn't work, you know, we can take a look at the MSBA day. I'll be there that following Wednesday all day with MASA. I'd have no problem with having you join me with some other superintendents on that particular day as well. Or, you know, there's some of the larger school districts, they just take their
Make
whole
their own
school
day.
board and they make their own day and they go bopping around, so. You know, I think my level of concern has risen higher than it had been regarding that, just because, you know, they're talking about dollars for schools, but now all of a sudden they're also talking about mandates on how we must spend that.
Yeah.
Which then would basically eat up every dollar that we get would go into what they're telling us that we have to spend it on, which is not what we need. So, anyway.
All right, Chad?
I had the agenda planning and that's it.
John?
No meetings or anything, but attended or helped run the archery tournament, that went very well. And then was to the band concert, which was awesome to see.
Thank you. There's no student council report, superintendent report.
I just acknowledge that, you know, we've only been doing these board showcases for maybe this year we started them. And I think, you know, we're starting to see some really cool ones. And you know, we're trying to push to have students in front of us more. And it doesn't always work out that way, but it was neat to see our students here tonight, and we'll keep trying to enhance those board showcases, which I added to our list of public engagement as a thing that we are doing. We hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, we did meet with public engagement prior to this, and we'll be creating an action plan with strategies to improve and increase engagement in our community. As you're aware, our high school principal, Barb Muckenhern, has accepted a position to be a superintendent. We're very excited and proud of her. But those are going to be some very big shoes to fill, as she brought 10 years experience as she served our district as a high school principal. That's somewhat unheard of, to be in that role for that long of a period of time. And she was our curriculum director, or director of teaching and learning for years before that too. So we have a lengthy process that we'll be going through. That position will be, either was posted, I don't know if Jason had posted it today. If not today, we'll go out tomorrow. We're also developing a survey that we will send out to all of our team members at the high school, as well as parents and community members, to help develop what we're going to call our profile of our candidate. You know, what are the skills and dispositions that we're, you know, really looking for in that position, to help us kind of create that when we go through the selection process of who we would bring in to interview, and then go through a pretty rigorous process of interviews where we'll have three to four different interviews that each of them will go through with different stakeholders. So that process is moving forward. As you're aware, the weather is something that is of high concern for us. We're all gonna have to probably drive safe home tonight. I don't know what it's doing right now, but it could be bad. But we will be having a distance learning day tomorrow. And then that following day is a traditional snow day, because we've run out of the allocated days that we have, that the legislature allows us to do that, so.
Can I ask a question? Is that after Thursday, are we to the point where we'd have to add a day unless we get some sort of extra e-learning from?
Actually, I was briefed today, as we recalculated some of the minutes, and there was an error in one of the calculations, and that we believe that we actually would have an additional day, that we would be able to not have school without having to make up a day. Now that.
Thursday? Could that be Thursday, or doesn't Thursday, doesn't that?
Well, we can do 5 e-learning days that they count as days. And then in our calendar, we have, based upon minutes, we have 2 additional days that are more than what the state requires of us. So we could not have school for 2 days without having to make that up. But if there's any more than that, we would have to make those up. Now, there's another complication or wrinkle to that, in that, yes, we don't have to make up those days. However, we do have contracted days in contracts for teachers that will need to work out how teachers will be assigned, I guess, work, whether it be staff development time in the summer or other kinds of duties to make up that time. So that would be something that we'll be discussing and working on. So with that, I'll just end my comments unless you have any specific questions.
All right, we'll move on to number 7. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Motion made by Chad, is there a second? Second by Melissa, and any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We'll discuss and act on previous board meeting minutes from February 7th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Motion made by Deb, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Don, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Motion made by Melissa, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Deb, is there any discussion? I would just like to, Barb Muckenhern's resignation is in the personnel section, and I would just, as a board, like to thank her for her 10 years of service and her service prior to that, and wish her well on her new position as well.
And just to add to that, I mean, it's pretty cool when we have people as part of our team that are sought after to take on a next professional role. And, you know, that's our second principal in a few years that has, you know, Dan Voce, strong member of our team, taking on that next step, and now Barb Muckenhern. And I think that speaks volumes to the quality of team members that we have in leadership roles.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We'll move on to the information part of our meeting and the revised budget.
So, if you bring up the first spreadsheet, this is the total revised budget, all funds. I won't talk about general fund on this page, but food service is the next one. We updated and reviewed salaries and benefits, and for all funds, not just Fund 2. And we look at the other category, as I call it, and then food service, it's food and whatnot. Of course, we know that groceries are up, so food is up, but it's not up as high as I thought it was gonna be. I thought we would see more of a hit there than what we're currently seeing. We are following it quite closely. Our revenue coming in is actually quite decent, going back to paid lunches. We were a little nervous about what that that is. So right now, you know, we're showing about a negative $100,000 variance there. But as of right now, I don't have any concerns regarding our food service. We do have a $2 million fund balance there due to the pandemic pieces and the money we received through that. Community education. So when finance saw community education the last time, it was almost like a $600,000 increase in fund balance. But Brian and I finally connected and we went through revenues and expenditures in all categories and talked about his plans and what impacts those would have. We are seeing a very, very well-used childcare program. And that is helping us out quite a bit with our community ed program and covering costs. In a large way, we still have some grant money coming in that area from COVID-19. You see those pathway dollars, or
are those the child stabilization?
yes, the child stabilization, yes. Part of that is just an increase in wages to our childcare staff that will go away here when this is done in June. And then 30% of it will be used to help offset some costs for parents. So programming in community ed though right now is looking strong and pretty exciting. So the building fund is Fund 6. The revenues there, of course, that were added is the abatement bond. The LTFM bond we're just in the process of doing. So, but the building fund, the abatement bond, and then there's a little bit of a project left, which is basically the project out here. We have a change order, or not a change order. We are holding funds until they fix a little error that they did, and of course they won't be able to do that until if the snow melts here in some decade. It started to and rained and iced, but and then debt service, of course, is our house payment, as I always mention. So we'll slide into the more interesting Fund 1. And next time, we'll have this up for action, and we will have, like I did the last time, I will have a document that's the Word document, and the links will be inside the Word document to all the budgets. Revised general fund. As we talked earlier, you will see that LTFM is back on to reapprove tonight. We had a little glitch when we were switching the document back and forth. Our track got deleted out of the cell. So I added that 200,000 back and fixed that spreadsheet. So that is our 22-23 plan for LTFM. It does not include the stuff that's going to be on the bond. As you know, we approve a plan, but it can be, because our year ends July 1, part of the plan can be in this fiscal year and part in the other. So operating capital, you reapproved last time, that added the weight room to it. Staff development, other than a few tweaks, that plan is the same, and so is QCOM, so is technology, so is program initiatives, and of course the activity account. We have always just put 500 and 500 in there since before I came here. So that's the student fundraising. COVID, Fund 19 is 1.8 million. We got quite a bit of one-time money in that, and then of course we will have there are some ongoing costs in that one-time money, and there are some that are not ongoing, like the LETRS training is in our Fund 19. We are training all of our staff, and as I mentioned to Jessica, we gotta have them all trained. with the money that we have to do that with, because, once that money's gone, it's gone. And that brings us to the unassigned, and many, you've all heard, we thought that variance would be a little bit better than what it is right now. Large part to special education. We did add some staff when we had an increase in students. But with that increase in students, we also had an increase of special education students that were about half of what we brought in. So those costs are hitting us hard. And then, of course, there was some adjustments related to inflationary costs that were part of this also. All of it added together, it was a little more than we had hoped for. At the 1.3, I was hoping we'd be under that million mark, but we didn't make it. So, as I said in previous meetings, we are running and watching it monthly now till the end of, until we approve that final budget. We will continue to watch and see how the spending is going. Go from there. Any questions on the revised budget?
I think we talked about this before, but when it comes to the food service, and the legislature's talking about free lunches for all, have we heard any more how that would affect the compensatory?
Compensatory is on the docket to talk about. There is no information about what their thoughts are on fixing.
I've been to like a half a dozen meetings with the Commissioner of Education, all the top legislators, all the finance people. It's one of the very first things that they'll openly acknowledge, that they know it's an issue. They promised every which way that they're gonna have a solution, they just don't know what it is. So that's kind of what we're hearing from them, and I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, no details yet. They probably actually don't have an answer, so that's why we don't have any details.
All right.
The good news with compensatory is, we only get about actually 200 applicants that don't come through the actual county. The rest of them are direct certs, as we call them. So, it comes over the airways and lands on our desk. But yes, they do have to address that. So.
Right. The budget analysis, 10B.
Yeah, and as we have also talked in prior meetings in our finance and oops. We take that number, our current year revised budget, and we start looking at where we might end up fund balance wise. If we end up at worst case scenario, hopefully at 100% where that fund balance would land, 99% and 98. And historically, we have been at 98. Outside the pandemic years, we had the pandemic years are really hard to gauge, but we were running, at that 98% deal. Well, right now, we're looking at 99 to 100% of our budget being spent. Revenues, we're hoping will come in better, but we won't know that until we get, to the end of the year. We've got some odd things like county revenue that we get miscellaneous. Sometimes that comes out better. Interest had been going down significantly, is now going back up. We did put a nicer number of interest in than the original budget, but not sure where that's going to land until it lands. And then we take the revised budget, we're gonna move that forward, and we put in the decrease of students that we talked about of 35, you approved the 4%. Special education, we just put in about 100,000, it always increases something. But we don't have the cross subsidy or any additional funds from the extra costs. One thing that we're also concerned about is tuition billing coming in for special education. Kids that are in other school districts that we are responsible for, we will be billed for those children. And if we're seeing an uptick in costs, we're betting that the other districts are seeing that. And then of course, our compensatory this year came in really nice. It was back to what it was when I first came here, back in 2012-13 school year, and ever since then it had been slowly decreasing. It was down to, 600,000. So that's increasing. And that report is still changing. They update that as corrections are found and made. So we'll make sure that's where it needs to be. Then we have a plug number in here for salary and benefits under the expense category. The other increase, which is, it can be, we might have to hire additional staffing that we didn't think about. It could be transportation costs. It could be, all those other things that you don't think of. And then, of course, the thing that is going to that's having a big impact is our Fund 19 is starting to be depleted. So one-time money is coming off. And so that leaves us with, I upped the thing to an estimated fund balance of about 4 million. Because I did roll, typically we don't roll into the next year, but I thought it was important to know what happens when the rest of the Fund 19 money comes off. And if we don't look at the 2 years, we could be in a world of hurt in the second year of this. So it looks not very pretty. They're big negatives, but at the same token, we are smart, intelligent people that are going to work together to make that much nicer picture for the future. Any questions?
I just want to make sure that I think the board understands this, but I think it's important for me to acknowledge this and state this publicly, that we feel like we need to start making plans to reduce our expenditures by approximately $1 million. And that's what we're going to be starting. We've started to work on some possibilities, but one of the first things that we need to do is get a handle on those parameters for class size. And as I indicated the last meeting when we were discussing possibly increasing class size parameters, that if we did not do that, which I was recommending that we don't, we need to make sure that we're on the highest end. And then, analyzing that, it's much easier to do at the primary and the intermediate school than it is at the middle school and the high school. And just there's so many more different variables there. So we have scheduled meetings with each department head and each principal to basically put the entire budget under the microscope and look at that. And I think that we're starting with those already tomorrow. So full day tomorrow, pretty much every day this week, we're meeting with different school leaders. So that work is happening, and as I indicated before, I'll be developing a communication that will go out to all of our team members that will share kind of the situation that we're in, and the idea that we're needing to reduce expenditures. I'm going to start with a written communication, and then I'll be strongly looking at possibilities for me to actually be out in front of our staff to communicate that in person. I just would need to find a time to do that works with everybody. With our tiered busing schedule, it makes it a little bit more tricky. So that's something that if I can, I will. And then in addition to that, we need to get something out to our public that will be in the Tiger Times and also the Union Times as well. And any other place that we can, just so we make sure people know what's going on.
Are you comfortable with, the $1 million being enough?
Well, I am.
Or is it a starting?
I think that's a starting point. I will tell you that when we go through this process, we have to be conservative. That being said, I feel fairly confident that there will be something on the cross subsidy that will impact revenue. Yeah, potentially $1 million or more, right? Which, if you were to look at, the $4 million that it says, or maybe it's 2.2 variance there. If we took a look at a possible 1 million, and then we were able to get some additional revenue that isn't in the projection of $1 million, we'd be flirting with somewhat of a balanced budget, which is something we haven't typically done, but we're gonna have to start getting closer to that, given the fact that we can't rely on underspending our budget with inflation.
Right.
So, that's where I think, the $1 million as a starting point. Now, what's gonna make all of what I just said go into a tailspin is if the legislature says, sure, we'll give you this money, but you have to have these certain wages for these certain groups, which would basically eat up all of that we would be relying on to have a balanced budget, So those are all the unknowns, but as a starting point, I think being conservative, you have to prepare for the worst, which is that we're not getting any of that money. So if we don't get anything more, and we do $1 million, it's gonna be similar to what we've adopted in previous years, right? That's about a $1.2 million deficit spending. We have to work like crazy to underspend our budget next year, and then hope that our enrollment numbers are higher than what we're projecting too, because I think that's we're trying to be conservative with that too, right? So, we could, instead of having a minus 35, if I really want to look positively, we could have a plus 200 or plus 100. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too far out there, but
It was 114 students it showed on one of those analyses that we could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But none of us, you don't want to be on the board that makes our district go broke in 2 years, and I don't want to be the superintendent that makes the district go broke in 2 years. Right? So that's where we have to.
24, 25,
The big pieces are the one-time money coming off and the fact that once your fund balance erodes, I've been here 10 years and we've used the fund balance pretty wisely in order to keep reductions as low as possible, but this last year has kind of hit us with things we weren't expecting, and it's not getting any better for SPED. The initial numbers Steve is showing us for each of the buildings is that each of the buildings, their SPED numbers are going up, and what's coming in, as they showed you here, that eventually hits our primary school. And we have a 10-to-1 ratio here. So if we get too many more, I don't even know space-wise where we're gonna put these kids. Because the ratios are low and we don't have the space.
Let's say, the cross subsidies that comes through, and we get all the cross subsidies that we possibly could ever imagine. Should we still cut $1 million though? To set us up for going in?
We are going to rerun the numbers.
Yeah, I definitely think that
I mean, well, yeah, you're gonna rerun them, but I would hate to say, oh, we don't have to cut, and then 2 years from now we have to cut double because we didn't do it
Exactly.
now.
Right, so
Yeah.
we're going to rerun the
Do
numbers,
something.
and then we're going to see what that second year would look like, before we made a final decision. Ultimately, it's your final decision on what we would do there. We've been talking about a tiered system where the first so many dollars is an action, that's really going to happen. And then the next 2 buckets would be see where we end, kind of thing. You know, but we do want to be able to tell staff if they're not coming back next year in a reasonable amount of time. And the legislature doesn't until, I think the final is May 22nd. They are telling us that they will close on time this year. So hopefully they do, so we know by May 22nd.
Yeah, I think that, you know, if we have our 500,000, we have our 750, we have our 1 million. And then let's, you know, hypothetically speaking, if we got 100% of our cross subsidy, that could bring that like 2.4 million, something along those in revenue, right? Which then on paper, you know, we wouldn't need to necessarily reduce, but we have to be cautious. We need to look at that next year, and I think the fact that we're losing 700,000 in ESSER funds this year for COVID money, then that following year, it's a minus 1.1 million. So it's like right away next year, you know that, you know, whatever we have now, it's subtract 1.1 million, and then how do you make that up? So, you know, maybe what you'd almost think about it of is, you know, making 500,000, even if you don't necessarily,
Split the difference.
you do 500 this year, which then, and then five next year, that gets you that 1.1 million that you're gonna lose. But the hard thing is that it's not gonna be easy to make these reductions for sure, especially given the fact that we're really getting traction and momentum on some really awesome things in our school district. And like, we have pages of things that we wanna add. So it's like, you go from these dreams of adding programming and really pushing this career academies at the high school to this next level, but you need a little staff and resources to help move this forward. We still have all the mental health issues in you know, the behavioral things and the social emotional things where the kids need support, and, you know, we're not gonna be adding in some of those areas. We might be cutting even. I don't know. It's honestly, things are gonna change just a little bit, I think, every 2 weeks when we're getting together for the next 3 months. And we just have to be willing to be flexible and adjust as we get more information along the way. At the end of the day, we don't need to adopt a budget for next year until June 30th. So we got time, but we also don't wanna mess with people's lives either.
Yeah.
So we wanna try and make decisions sooner than later.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, we will move on to the action part of the meeting, number 11. And I will entertain a motion to accept, sorry, board goals. Oh, you guys don't wanna miss that, do you? Board goals, sorry. Chad and I worked on trying to put your thoughts together from the last meeting. If you had a chance to take a look at those. With public engagement being charged with working on strategies for the first one and long-range planning to work on strategies for the second one. And then enhancing the role of the high school student school board representative, and Chad and I will work on with anyone else that has interest in maybe creating some things there to at least even by next year have a few more things in place. Winnie is on our school board page on our website. And we've talked about recognizing her at graduation, as a school board rep. That hasn't been done before. So there are things that we can do like now, but maybe, together with her, some kind of handbook, or, next year assigning a mentor, right away and having conversations. Also looking at ways to like have her contribute more than just what's going on at the high school, but maybe while we're discussing things, having or encouraging or encourage some input or discussion at that time. So, any comments or? I like it. It's good. Anybody want to add more board goals to that document?
There should be plenty.
Yeah, I think the goals are good. Just some commentary on the second goal that we haven't talked a lot about, just more fun, positive news. I have had some conversations with some of the top pollers in the state, or the statisticians that survey communities across the state for other districts that are considering going out for referendums, whether it be building or operating. And I don't have the exact numbers, but out of all the ones that they've done, a dozen or so, there's not one test that they've done that the community that they've looked at would be in a position to support a referendum at this time, just given the economic conditions that I think are similar to most communities across the state. So just some little tidbit of information that I've recently heard, because I know that's something that we talk a lot about, so.
Oh, there was just 4 of them that passed them. Yeah. Crookston and,
Okay.
I don't remember who all, but Crookston, that was their second time around. And it was narrow this time.
Mhm.
It was narrow, the negative, the last time.
Was that in November?
This was built, no, it was just recent, like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, or, yeah. There was an MSBA thing that came out, and I want to say there was 5 and 4 of them passed, maybe. They were all building referendums.
Okay.
And one was large, but I don't know if that was, one was. Some of them
Bigger
were.
than ours.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know if anybody's seen, but Minnesota High School League released Rock Ridge Brings Tears. It's the Minnesota's newest district offers a look into the future. It's up way up north, and they're combining schools, but they've built a state-of-the-art facility.
Yeah, Steinbrecher painting is painting that.
It's just what they're all doing and how they're standing behind their kids up there. I mean, it does bring tears to your eyes when you read the article.
Wow.
So I would highly, if you find it, or.
Can you forward that to us?
For Crookston?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get the link to you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a stadium and the artificial turf in Crookston. That's what passed.
Well, I'm gonna have to get some more information on the person that shared this with me, so.
Yes.
I don't think we should stop.
Football,
Yeah.
track,
Gotta keep marching
Yeah.
forward.
Crookston.
Who's living in Crookston these days, huh?
Crookston can do it, why can't
And
we?
that's what I'm thinking. If they can do it,
And how big
we
was
can do
it?
better.
What was it?
It's about 5 million that they passed for
Is that all? Because they did
Track
a
field.
whole artificial.
whatever
turf
they're
football
using at the
field.
college is what they're building. Because they were using facilities at
Yes.
UMC for track and that, so they're building that facility for their in-house, so they're not paying rent at UMC.
Yeah.
All right, now.
Now.
Now we're
Interesting
gonna
stuff.
move on. Okay, so we'll move on to pay equity, and I will entertain a motion to accept the pay equity compliance testing as presented. Motion made by Eric Minks, Chad, second by Chad. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The second reading of policy, Don talked to us about the changes at the last meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept the second reading of policy.
So moved.
Motion made by Deb, second by Eric Minks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 11C, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 23-24 school calendar as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Melissa, second by Don. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 11D is the revised LTFM tenure plan. I will entertain a motion to accept that revised plan as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Deb, a second by Chad. Is there any discussion? And this does not have to be roll call, right? No. So LTFM doesn't have to be.
Yes, it's money.
Okay. We have a motion second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will vote by roll call, starting with Deb.
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Sue, yes.
Yes.
Chad? Don?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Motion carries. There were no additions to the agenda. The future meetings are listed there. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Deb, second by
It
Chad.
was me.
All in favor, say aye. We're
Aye.
adjourned. Aye. I do have one question. Are you